Please.
Hello and good afternoon. I do hope everybody is still well rested. It has been a long day. Let me start by expressing my gratitude to Congressman Pittenger, who I consider a dear friend, for organizing this event, and to the UK partners for allowing us to be hosted in London. We have heard so much today about dependence, about how dangerous it is for countries to fall down into a position of dependence towards their enemies and adversaries. Critical minerals may be perhaps the topic that may unleash the biggest suffering among the people and the biggest dependence onto our free states. It appears a rule of nature that whenever an element is, in any historical context, regarded as critical, it is not abundant, but tends to be scarce and indeed concentrated one way or another. Historically observed, such circumstance may lead only to two types of outcome: either conflict or cooperation. Regretfully, our history shows us that the states mostly chose conflict over cooperation. I'd not be standing here today in front of you all, representing your governments and countries, if I thought that the space for cooperation vanished into thin air in front of our eyes. Though I do remain rational and reasonably concerned about the ways and means of addressing diverse interests and complexities surrounding critical minerals. So where are we now on the scale between conflict and cooperation? Well, the scale rather shows conflict over cooperation. By means of example, as we stand here today, two bills rest with the US Congress intending to prohibit all imports of cobalt and cobalt-related products sourced through child labor into the United States. Indeed, in my view, and as somebody who proudly supported the initiative, it is an important signal that lives of thousands of children working in illegal mines do matter, and that we stand strong with them. But also, we need to be frank. This is potentially a highly forceful measure of last resort that may disturb the battery market worldwide. At the same time, on the other hand, no mother, irrespective of origin, suffers less over the devastation of own child's life and future, let alone death. Hence, unsurprisingly, we stand strong with our partners from Africa in pleading for a solution to advance the technical progress we all seek, but at the price we are actually willing to pay. So I would like to paint a picture of how complex the issue of critical minerals indeed is, and reducing it to extraction and extraction rights and ownership over mines in particular geographic area is absurd and doesn't do justice to the topic. Unfortunately, there are two additional components to critical minerals that are integral to the resolution of this problem. Firstly, the refining. Again, as we discuss this issue, we should note that there is not a single refinery of cobalt in the free Western world. Not one. And without refining, we cannot use these gifts coming from the nature in order to implement them in our new technological advances. Lastly, it is the production, the implementation of the world's know-how into the most advanced products, the most advanced technological solutions that will lead us, hopefully, into quote-unquote green revolution. But those are only assembly plants in their real nature. Monopolization of any aspect of this supply chain when it comes to critical minerals leads to absolute dependency of international economies, which can only be seen as a reckless spark starting a wildfire of potential conflicts. Now, it takes really no drop of sweat to look into the recent past and see how absolute foreign dependence on any element or process can cause abrupt standstill of our economies and expose the vulnerable nature of our national securities. Hence, while necessary and commendable, it is to see the effort and commitment of our governments in building new battery production facilities throughout the Western world. These state-of-the-art facilities and industrial wonders are connected, again, to no refineries connected by the Western world. Knowing that the kill switch rests in the hands of those willing to use it against you does not let you sleep well. In the words of a famous song, we'd drive our Chevy to the levee, but the levee would be dry. The other side of the medal resides with our African partners, who see a unique opportunity to leave the continent more advanced for generations to come. And we ought to applaud that. They hold a legitimate interest in becoming a meaningful part of the supply chain, protecting their countries and the families from child labor, slavery, abuse, and corruption. And in parallel, being able to reinvest the proceeds into long-term perspectives, such as infrastructure, development, energy, education, and agriculture. The reference to perspectives come perfectly together, and they should not be conflicting. Neither party can state to have monopoly over this supply chain. Regretfully, the monopoly in the entire supply chain rests with the Communist Party of China. Without our African partners, we largely do not have critical minerals to start with. And without the Western partners, we do not have the industrial know-how to use these wonders to our benefit. It is therefore that I believe in cooperation and not in conflict, but cooperation based on recognition of the value the world's fastest developing continent holds for our future, and the value that the Western world can bring to the table. I'd dare to say that there is no alternative to this cooperation, because how terrifying would that perspective be? The current, almost perfection monopolization of the supply chain by a single world power, Chinese Communist Party, largely led to devastation of Africa. I have witnessed it myself, being in countries rich with everything God can give them, and yet so poor that 4-year-olds need to work in mines. The death toll in these mines, powered by forced child labor, offends the conscience and destroys the humanity. At the same time, the ability of opposing these practices is muddied and silenced by the need to receive refined products, which we all became slaves of. For these reasons, I see critical minerals not as conflict triggering, but rather as partnership seeking. And I hope we all do. Hence, I do ask you, as leaders of your parliaments, as leaders of your country, to look towards those partners who seek to develop your potential. Not only those partners who provide for a very short term, very limited, and power-greedy monetary incentive. I do thank you for your attention to this issue, and I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.